right? So with that, I will pass it over to our speaker.
Thank you so much, Marielle. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here again. We had a blast a few weeks back. Definitely the feedback was very positive. Hopefully we can, replicate some of that great energy here. Like Marielle said, please put in the questions in the chat as we go. We might take a few opportunities for me to drink some water, maybe catch my breath, and we can maybe answer some along the way if they're relevant to keep the conversation going. I'm gonna make sure to introduce myself and the company here, but first let me go ahead and share my screen. Just some confirmation when you guys get a chance, Marielle and team, that you can see my presentation mode.
There it is. Looks
Beautiful.
great.
Awesome. So let's get to it. First things first. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. My name's Alan Gucovschi. I'll be your presenter for today. Hopefully answer your questions and get you guys thinking about digital transformation. I'm one of the co-founders at ONR. We've been in business for about 6 years now, and we're basically a company that helps you build time machines. We are an all-in-one community management platform for condos and HOAs specifically. So all we think about all day is what I'm going to talk to you about today, which is how can technology benefit your association? How can it benefit your residents? How can it benefit the entire community, staff members as well? And essentially, like I mentioned, what we do is we build software, we build apps, and we like to say that we build time machines because we save you time and money, and you're able to do things along the way that you want to be able to do. Maybe some of you know us for our online voting platform. It's one of the things we started off with. Nowadays, we have a full community management suite that we'd be happy to showcase some other time. But today, we're not going to do a sales presentation. We're going to do a course, and we're going to learn about digital transformation for associations. And here's the proposed agenda for today. We have a few interesting topics that we're going to cover. By the way, this presentation is a 2-hour credit, although we don't anticipate going for 2 hours and speaking for 2 hours. You'll have the opportunity to ask plenty of questions along the way. Hopefully we can get them answered. These are the things that we're going to talk about today. Number one is we're going to discuss the 3 pillars of community engagement, community management, and what that entails. What are the pillars of software that I need to be able to run my association, my management company? Number 2 is we're going to talk about some of the technology non-negotiables. If you are in the market right now to buy apps, to buy software, to bring services to your community, what are some of the things you must think about and not compromise in to make sure that you're delivering the best quality experience for your residents? We're going to talk a lot about AI today. This is really exciting stuff. Artificial intelligence is picking up a lot of momentum. There's a lot of use cases for AI in property management and association management. I'll try to give you guys a couple of use cases and also show you how the market is growing and some of the data that validates some of the noise and the momentum that you're hearing. We're going to spend some time talking about communications. For those of you that attended our session a few weeks back, we had a whole webinar just on communications. We're going to give you a very high-level overview today of that, but that's very important. How do you incorporate different communication methods? What are the benefits, some of the best practices in getting engaged and getting your message out there? And then we'll close up today's session with a few must-have key features that if your association doesn't have today and you don't provide your residents these features, you should go out and get them. And hopefully we can get a few action items for you leaving today's session. And obviously we have our own FAQ, but if you give us questions along the way, we'd be happy to answer them. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into our first point, which is the industry pillars and why this is important, because we have to understand why is it that we should take on these projects on? Why do I need to change the way that I'm working and what are the benefits? But before we even get to that, let's talk about the different types of software that you can have in your association. It really comes down to 3 key pillars. You have to have your accounting and financials figured out, right? So that's a very important pillar of the association. Having the ability to collect money, having the ability to keep a track and keep tabs on who owes what and have a ledger for the residents and the ledger for the association is imperative. Without that, you can't run your association at all. And a few years back, that was good enough for some associations. When we started this company 6, 7 years ago, there were a few very small associations that were happy just having their books up to date and really had nothing else going on in terms of tech. But as we continue to evolve, something that became very, very important, especially in larger, more complex communities, is property management software or management software in general. Being able to manage equipment, people, be able to manage maintenance, be able to reserve amenities, access control, so on and so forth, became really, really, really important as well. And we see a lot of the spend today in technology happening in this pillar. And what's newer and certainly the most exciting for residents is that third pillar of apps that we're starting to see nowadays, which is the community apps. It's your online voting, it's your amenity reservations, it's your document portal. Right now, the law recently changed in Florida, for those of you connecting in Florida, for example, that if you're a condo over 25 units, you must provide an access portal for people to come in and look at further documents that's password protected. All these things are picking up very, very strong momentum. So what we've seen is associations along the way over the past few years incorporate different solutions that fall within some of these pillars. And the problem that has created, it's that it has created a very fragmented community experience. So there's a whole set of tools that management brings to the table. You move into one of these communities, condo or HOA, you name it, and you go and you meet the property manager and they set you up in 3 or 4 different apps. Here's the app that you use for payments, and here's the app that you use for service requests. And here's another app that you're going to use for amenity reservations. And if you need something else, send me an email or WhatsApp. So you're getting all these different apps from the property manager. And then you leave their office, you get into the elevator, you meet your new neighbor, and they say, hey, welcome to the community. You're going to love it here. We have all these different apps. So I'm going to add you to the Facebook group where we have our marketplace, and the WhatsApp group where we have, people report security concerns. And we also have this other app, Venmo. We have a Venmo group so we can, do a tennis tournament and share the prize and have people buy into the tournament or poker or whatever you're into. And it's very, very, very overwhelming because the experience is extremely fragmented. And managers are spending a lot of time, about 20% of their time, toggling between these different apps and copying and pasting things and doing something that's called content switching. So what is it that we should be trying to do as thought leaders, as property managers, as board members in these communities? We should be trying to provide a single experience. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean finding an app that can do everything. There's complexities, there's challenges to that, but you have to find an app that can do most of the things and where you can connect the other apps to. You need to have a hub. You need to have a strategy to provide a single point of access so people can access all the services for their associations. And if you do that, and if you buy technology and incorporate it under this mentality, then every single tool you bring additional will add value and won't distract or generate noise for your association, which is what happens today. Oh, we have another tool now that we have to download. So that's a really important message because in today's session, and as I elaborate on different tools and different features, you could probably go out to the market and find a standalone application that will do that for you. But you have to understand how this plays a role within your general digital transformation strategy. And if what you're trying to accomplish is providing the best resident experience, you have to find a way of unifying these services into a single product offering. If you need any help doing that, there's companies out there like ONR or others that can help you with a strategy, but make sure you stop buying one-off apps and really think about the overall picture, okay? We'll keep going here. So you have to be able to have certain criteria when you're looking at these apps. So again, think about the overall strategy. Think about how you incorporate these different apps into your strategy. And once you decide that you have a hole that you need to fill, let's start talking about some of the things that have to be non-negotiables. So number one, the app that you're going to buy or that you're going to subscribe to, rather, has to be software as a service. There is no other option right now for you. If anyone is pitching you on an idea to buy an application that you're going to run yourself in your own server, in your own computer, and all you're going to do is pay a one-time fee for it, then you're going to have a very, very, very bad experience, and it's going to be a very dated app. Learn the concept, software as a service. It's really important. Software as a service means if the app is not working, you're not paying, right? Software as a service means it's running in someone else's server, in someone else's computer. And you're probably just connecting to that application with a web browser or with a mobile app on your phone. But you're not the one responsible of running the application. You just have to use it. That's a really important concept. All the new apps nowadays are software as a service. Netflix is software as a service. Anything that you subscribe to is software as a service. So again, this can be seen at the technology level. So make sure that it's running in someone else's computer. But it's also important to be seen at the contractual level. What type of agreement are you receiving from the software provider? Is it a subscription agreement? Is it a services agreement? If that's the case, you're good. It's software as a service. If what you're getting is a different type of agreement, then you need to find another provider. That's really, really, really important. Number two is you need to deploy modern looking interfaces. And you all know what a modern looking interface looks like. Again, we see it in Amazon, we see it in Netflix, we see it in Facebook and Instagram and some of the other tools that we use on our day-to-day base. There is no reason right now for you to bring an old application into your new environment, into your association. Now, this you have to look at with a very critical eye. Request a proof of concept, request a demo. Don't buy just off of a PowerPoint presentation. Actually, try out the app if you want first, and find an agreement, find people that are willing to give you a trial period. So if you don't like what you see in the first few weeks, you can opt out of that contract, because more often than not, companies will put their best foot forward to showcase a simple demo environment, but then have a hard time actually deploying for you, right? So why is this important? Well, if you bring one of the dated applications, one of those applications that was built in 2010 and 2012, 2015, that just happened to be revamped recently to be able to run software as a service, you can tell. Like if you open up your app and it's running in a browser, but it looks like an app that's 10 years old, that means the app is 10 years old. It was just repackaged to be delivered as a service. So don't fall for that. Look for new innovative apps. Look for nice looking designs. Try it out. Don't buy off of PowerPoint. Be empowered to actually test this out and see if you would use it in your personal life and have a really high standard for it. Because if you don't, you're going to have a hard time getting people to adopt it and use it, and then you're going to miss the whole point. Number three is we have to embrace social media-like features. Nowadays, social media is a very, very powerful engine to drive innovation, especially in the way that we interact with applications. So what are social media-like features? Having the ability to scroll, having the ability to have group chats, having the concept of liking and commenting on different things. These types of features can be embedded in all types of apps nowadays. And if you don't have these features, if all you have is it's a menu, you log in and you get a menu and you can, do a few items and then leave, then you're never truly going to drive adoption. Because these features, these social media-like features, were designed by social media companies after spending billions of dollars in research and development to understand what is it that people want to use and what's the best way for them to consume information. So again, I encourage you, look for posts, look for community feeds, look for group chats, look for push notifications, look for the things that make all of us as a society use social media so much, because those features, that type of experience within your payments app, that type of experience within your property management app, that type of experience within your community management app will yield people using the app more and ultimately have a more successful digital experience for everyone in the community. And the last thing, what we call non-negotiable, is the concept of the bring your own device, BYOD. That's what BYOD stands for. You see it here in the slide. And that is the concept that an application should run in any type of device. So if you're bringing a platform to your association, you're bringing a new app, you have to be mindful that there's a lot of different people with a lot of different devices. You're going to have your iPhone group. You're going to have your Android group. You're going to have your legacy Android and iPhone group, people that have very old devices. You're going to have the folks that like to use tablets. You're going to have the folks that still like to use computers and prefer to have a desktop or a laptop. And the key is to be able to provide the same experience to everyone, regardless of the device that they're using. So when you're looking at these software providers, ask them, so what happens if I want to connect through my mobile device? Will I have the same capabilities that if I connect with my computer? And if the answer is no, then they better have a really good explanation why that is. Because something that's very frustrating for a resident is trying to incorporate themselves into the app, log in, set up, do something through the platform, only to realize that their device is not compatible. Now, I will put a silver lining to it, and I will say that this is important, which is there's some people that have really, really dated devices. So usually service providers, software providers that are on top of their game, what they will do is they will match their compatibility with the latest operating systems. So if you're in a version of your tablet or you're in a version of your Android that cannot be updated anymore because it doesn't support any new updates, chances are new apps are not going to run there. But as long as you can keep updating that device, we should be able to give you full feature parity, the ability to do everything on the same app. So those are the non-negotiables. I'd say the 4 are extremely important. And you should prioritize these 4 things, and you should ask tough questions and get your demos and get your ability to test out the features before actually subscribing. And again, remember, it's not buying. You're not buying anymore. You're subscribing. And just like any other service, you should have the ability to opt out if the service is not working for you. So let me take a quick checkpoint here. Do we have any questions, Maria, maybe along the way that makes sense to be answered?
Well, we have a couple so far. We have one. What is the average size of the communities that benefit the most from your service is the first question.
Yeah, let me get into that. So I'm going to answer generally because, again, not a sales presentation. So I'm not going to speak specifically for ONR, but a little bit more general. When we started working with communities, this was 6-7 years ago, we noticed that you really had to have a few dozen, maybe even a few hundred doors for some of these systems to be worth it, because they were really expensive. Not only were they expensive to buy, I had to buy the software, but you had to have some type of team or people running this to make sure that it ran, So it was a significant investment that went beyond just the software itself. It had all the other support components to it. As things transitioned to software as a service, technology became more accessible because you don't have to have server and database experts to run these systems. All you have to do is have people that can actually use the app, right? So this has allowed the threshold to come down to smaller communities where maybe 10, 20 units already can benefit. But think about it from this perspective. We've been tracking legislature in Florida for years that affect this, needless to say. And when we started this company, if you were a condo of over 200 units, 150 units, you had to have a portal. And the reason why they set it at 150 units and not below that, because we got a chance to speak to some of the senators that were behind it, is because they didn't want to add the burden of cost to such small communities, because people would end up paying more per door, needless to say. Well, with the new legislation that just came out, they just lowered that to 25, from 150 to 25. So what the senators are saying is they looked at the providers out there, they realized that the cost of technology has dropped significantly. Hence, we can ask smaller communities to embrace this type of projects without creating too much of a burden of cost to them. And not only that, but they also added it to HOAs, because it's not only about the size, but also the type of the community that depends on the investment. So I'd say nowadays, everyone needs accounting and financials. If you don't have a way to collect payments online, you're missing out. And needless to say, you need to track your books. If not, you're not an association. But property management and community management systems are very accessible nowadays. They're a few $100s a year for the entire community, and you might as well give it a shot.
Great answer. Thank you. We have another one. How do you deal with language barriers for subscribers?
Yeah, good point. So we live in Florida, right? We got a ton of different languages out there. Two things. One is you should find a system that's multilingual. I mean, if you need to understand who your demographics are. If you have a lot of Spanish speakers in your community, for example, you need to find a system that can support the system in Spanish. I mean, needless to say, because if you're creating a language barrier on top of the technology barrier, it might be too high for some people to jump over. And when we start missing people, when staff members are not there, when certain residents are not there, we lose the momentum. So you need to find a system that's multi-language, needless to say. Now, there's also the concept of, well, my app is in Spanish. It says ir instead of go, right? So the button changes. But what about the content itself, right? What about what we're posting there and the documents and the messages we're sending out? Here's where you have to be mindful. And here's where you can actually incorporate artificial intelligence, which we will discuss in a second, that are tools that can help you communicate in different languages, either translate your text without losing the context itself, and even some social like media features that will do that on the fly automatically for those residents. So think about that. It's two things. It's the app being in multi-language, but also the content itself.
Amazing. Very cool. We have a couple more. Would you like to keep going with the presentation and come back, or
I'll take one. I'll take one more. I think these questions are very relevant.
Do you offer club / restaurant software?
That's a good question. So specifically for ONR, we don't have our own restaurant software point of sale. We do support many clubs and memberships, so on and so forth, where they can reserve amenities, pay their dues. But the food itself, we don't. But here's where I can give you an example of why you need to have an overall strategy. Because you could go out there and get toast, for example. It's a very common one, right, for restaurants. There's a handful out there, but maybe toast is one of the most significant ones. If you have toast, and you should use toast, toast is great. Is there a way to connect toast with your resident portal? So if you were using ONR, you could. We have the ability to create custom tiles where we're linking the resident back to toast.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So think about it under this capacity. You're not going to find, I can tell you, I've been looking for a while. I look every day. You're not going to find an app in the market that can do everything. But you can find an app or find apps that'll be a single portal front end where you can connect other services behind. And that's what you should be striving to do.
So that restaurant function could plug into the overall
experience.
A club could it plug in, whatever other potential amenities that one association has and another one doesn't, could plug in. So
correct. Valet parking services. Sometimes you hire, for example, a valet parking company, and they'll say, we bring in our own app. And that's how we do online. All right, perfect. Let me incorporate it into the whole application for the community, and then we're all synced from there.
Amazing.
Cool. All right, so let me keep going here. I have a few more slides to go through, and then we'll hit up some questions. Again, thank you everyone that put them in. All right, so let's talk about artificial intelligence specifically. And what are the some of the use cases that we have for community management? And again, here it's about two things. It's about talking about the case, but also I want to give you context into what's happening in the market and how the market is growing and what's the real momentum behind this. So first, entertain this slide for me for a second, which is the global artificial intelligence market within PropTech, within property management space, PropTech technology. PropTech means property technology, right? So it's what we're doing, what we're talking about. It's exploding. So in 2023, it was a $20 billion market. It came up out of nowhere, I can tell you. For those of you that track technology, artificial intelligence came in as a wave, caught everyone by surprise. It's going to expand to about 160 billion. So a lot more than that, 13x what we have today in the next 10 years. And how this is going to look and how you're going to start to see this is that this is going to be weaved in and embedded within all the systems and all the apps that you're going to buy. So there's two ways of consuming this AI. It could be standalone AI products, and there's some people that are creating their own standalone artificial intelligence chatbots, for example, or you can see it within the other apps. We think that the best way to consume artificial intelligence is when it's baked into your other apps and not have another app, because then the solution is worse than the problem, right? You're adding even more apps to the system. But needless to say, buckle your seatbelts. Artificial intelligence is here and it's coming with force. And we're going to be able to see that along some of these next slides that I'm talking to you about. So what is the first use case that we want to cover today? And we kind of touched on this on our series with you folks that we did here live 2-3 weeks ago. It's automated communication management. So it's having the system be able to communicate and respond to common questions and automatically send due reminders and distribute newsletters and keep residents informed. And one thing that you should look at when it comes to artificial intelligence, beyond just the automation piece, is how can I quickly assess an emergency? How can I have systems that recognize that something's off? Maybe feed it information from a hurricane center. If something happens, if there's an evacuation notice, just to give you an example, shouldn't we have a system that automatically notifies those residents and has a fast response? And if that's the case, then what type of system do we need that can not only understand what's happening and have the context of what's happening, but also automatically send out those notifications? So that's something to keep in mind there as well. It's the ability to automate, but also the ability to think. And it's very easy to get caught up in the concept that artificial intelligence is just automation. It's not. Automation is a part of it, but it's even more important to understand that AI itself has the ability to create content and understand content and evaluate different scenarios. And one of the most common things that you're going to start seeing pop up, if you haven't already, in terms of automatic communications are chatbots, right? Having a chatbot that can answer questions for you. So what I want to share here with you folks on this slide is some of the most common use cases for chatbots. Now, this is not specific to our industry. This is generally. Chatbots have been around for a while, as you guys probably know. But nowadays, especially in the last year or year and a half, they have become a lot more powerful because they have artificial intelligence engines behind them where you can really have a conversation, where they're not just looking for keywords and trying to answer with what they've been programmed to answer. And here are the top use cases for chatbots. Number one is getting a quick answer in an emergency, right? I need to know what the number is for this. I have a water's bursting out of my toilet and it's flooding everything, and I need the number right now of a plumber that can come take care of this. That's an emergency, and that's perfect for chatbot. Resolving a complaint or a problem. Again, this usually has to have in a timely manner. So I have a complaint, I have a problem. How can I get this fixed? And getting a detailed answer or explanation is number 3. I'll just round off here. Number 4 and 5 is finding a human service assistant. So how can I get a hold of my property manager? What time will the property manager be back? What is the best time or the best way to get a hold of them? And finally is making a reservation, right? So I'd like to reserve tennis court for blah, blah, blah. These things are going to be really, really relevant in our industry because a lot of the answers are going to be the same for everyone. So we have the ability to create really powerful bots. We'll share this presentation after. You'll be able to see all the details here. The list continues to go down. But as you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of traction when it comes to chatbots. And again, think about this. Do you want to have a standalone chatbot that you just bought off the street and all it does is it's a chatbot? Or do you want these chatbots baked in to the other systems that you're using? Because if they are baked into the other systems that you're using, then they have something that standalone chatbots don't have, which is context. If the system that has the chatbot is also the system where the reservations are made, then the chatbot knows what reservations are available. If the chatbot is not connected to the reservation system, then you're going to request a reservation on the chatbot. It'll say that your message will be sent to a manager, but you will not be able to do the reservation because the chatbot does not know what reservations are available. Again, just getting you to think about this and how the different things connect. Number 2 is preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance is probably at the core of what we have to do as property managers. It's where we can really add value to our residents. I mean, beyond just being on top of things and acting. Because if it's done right, you can save a lot of time and money for the association. What we're seeing right now happening in Florida and beyond is all these preventative maintenance that wasn't done for the past decades being special assessed and being needed to work right now. And that makes it a lot more expensive. We know this. So how is AI going to help us with this? Well, it's going to help us analyze data, and it's going to help us have the following benefits. Number 1 is we're going to have increased safety because preventive maintenance implies things are working better, and we're definitely going to be in a position that we're better off. Number 2, there's going to be cost savings because if you plan these things out ahead of time, you'll be able to save money, needless to say. You'll have improved efficiency, and ultimately, you'll have an extended equipment life. So we want to have systems that can help you analyze these things. What do I mean by that? Well, inventory tracking systems that can also look at best practices in terms of maintaining these things. Systems that have automatic tasks that are created and assigned to the right folks, and reminders that are sent automatically to the people that are responsible for taking care of this preventative maintenance until they're taken care of. And if we don't do that, and if we're still doing it by hand or manually in an Excel or whatever we're using today to track this maintenance, then we're missing all the point because you're doing all the work yourself. If you have to manually remind your staff members, your maintenance personnel to go and service the generator because it has to be done every 6 months, then you're missing the point. You need a system that will tell you that the generator is due for a service. It'll schedule the task for your staff member, and it'll follow up and send reminders until this task is taken care of. And once this task is completed, it should be able to generate a report for you to be able to see and track and share with the rest of the community that needs to be in the know about the things that are happening for maintenance. This is really important, and this is a very simple step you can take that is not disruptive, and you're not going to get any pushback from anyone in the association because this is used primarily internally. But it also gives the residents the ability to submit requests and submit enhancements, and we're going to talk about that in my next section here. Awesome. Coming up here on the third trend, resident engagement satisfaction. So the personalizing communication using AI is important. So we just talked about, for example, Spanish versus English versus other languages and having the content in the right language. Having the communication personalized, meaning making sure that it doesn't say hi neighbor, it says hi Alan. We received your information for your apartment 2403. And here's the information that we need filled out to be able to give you this permit you need for construction. Having this type of satisfaction and engagement tracked here. And, AI is great for customer success. And again, I like to show you the momentum so you understand where I'm coming from here. Within that analysis I gave you, how that market is growing, AI within customer service itself as a market, as an industry, is exploding. It's exploding. Artificial intelligence in terms of chatbots, in terms of a feedback survey, in terms of understanding what the net promoter score is for your users, meaning if they'll recommend, if they think you're doing a good job or not, responding to their requests. All this data is going to be available for you at your fingertips. Understanding how long it takes for a certain staff member to answer these requests. Understand how much time it takes for people to be able to complete the requests and acknowledge them, and what type of satisfaction people have after those interactions. All that information is going to be readily available for you. And it's going to be generated by these AI engines. And it's going to take us to the next point, which is this will allow you to make data-driven decisions. So if you embrace technology, not only are you going to get time savings and cost savings, you'll also get the ability to make better decisions because you're going to have more data. Anything that happens digitally will leave a paper trail and will give us the ability to be able to look at that and make data-driven decisions. What do I mean by that? Maybe you're overstaffed certain parts of the day and you're understaffed certain parts of the day. Maybe you are promoting and giving more responsibility to a certain staff member when it's actually another staff member, a peer of them, that was carrying most of the load and doing most of the work. And being able to determine these things in real time, being able to see if the association can afford to do a project or not, and having this information ahead of time and not finding yourself short. And again, we've always tried to do this. It's not that this is a new concept. We've had boards that in theory should be comprised of experts that can help the association analyze data and make these types of judgments. And also property managers are very well versed in a lot of these topics, financials, legal, so on and so forth, to understand if the association can do it or not. But now we have tech that can do it. Now we have technology that can do it much better than all of us. And if we embrace it, we'll create the opportunity to have this tech. Finally, and the last thing on this AI section, I could go on for another hour just on artificial intelligence, and eventually we will, because we are registering an AI course with the state of Florida. So if you're interested in this topic, be on the lookout. We'll be presenting one of those hopefully shortly. The last thing is resident and onboarding training. So every time we get a resident to move in, every time we get a new staff member even to start working, what does the onboarding and training look like to make that shortest amount of time possible? Because there's a learning curve to use all of these systems. And again, if every one of these apps is a standalone app, if every one of these systems is a standalone system, and there's no artificial intelligence that's baked in throughout the system, like we discussed, to make this a little bit easier to use, then you're going to have a really hard time onboarding and training folks. And what that translates to, essentially, is having people reaching out to you, asking to be able to do different things. How do I reserve something? How do I do this? How do I do that? And they expect you to do it on their behalf. And that's the challenge there, okay? All right. So this takes me to the end of another section. Mariel, should we take another few questions along the way? Is there anything new that came up?
Yeah, I actually think we have a perfect question for the last couple slides, and it's a good question, but also a tough one. Because we do want people to be able to adopt technology because of all of these amazing features and functions and ease of use that you've gone over. The question is, what do we do when someone does not have a computer, social media, or email? And you've talked a lot about benefits of using technology from a board standpoint or a property management standpoint. I believe this kind of question is for an individual resident point of view.
That's a really good question. So you remember when we came up with when they came up with toll by plate, and you can do SunPass, and you had the ability for people to be able to drive through the tolls. And at first you had 4 lanes that were still throw your coins, and then 1 lane where you had SunPass. And then what we saw over the years is how more lanes became keep driving, and less lanes became stop and pay with cash. But you still have the ability to pay with cash if you wanted to on some of these tolls. And the reason why is because you have to be able to accommodate everyone. There's no way that we can force, especially in condos and HOAs, other types of living arrangements like multifamily. Listen, if you don't have an email, go get one because you got to pay online. If not, you got to move out, right? That's not the case in HOAs. That's not the case in condos. So we have to be able to accommodate both. So I'll tell you this. Don't hold the majority of the association hostage because there's a minority that are not tech savvy. Find a system that can add value to everyone. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, at ONR, we take the association roster and we upload them into our system. And we do everything that we can to make sure that as many people as possible download the app, set up their password, come in and engage, right? We do that through messages, reminders, webinars, different things that we can do to drive people to use it. There's always a handful of people that don't. Either they don't know, they don't care, they're not here, they're not there, or maybe to your point, they don't have an email, right? So what happens there? Well, as long as their information is uploaded into our system, as long as we have at least a text message number, a cell phone number that we can send text messages to, or an email that we can send an email to, even though they haven't set up their account, they can still get the messages, right? So, hey, you get a text message, someone just, dropped off a package. There's a new visitor that's coming upstairs. There's a new payment that's due. Even though you're not an active user, you're still benefiting from the platform. And that's something that's important because if you bring in these systems and they do save you time and money, those savings are not only going to be for the folks that are using it, they're going to be for the entire association. You see what I'm saying? So that's something that's really, really important and really, really tough to understand, that you don't have to actually use the app to benefit from it. You could be receiving messages or even just saving money in your maintenance dues because the association took on these projects. We see this a lot. Online voting is a perfect example. Some people prefer to vote on paper because they have their apprehensions to vote online. Make sure that you have a system that can accommodate both. That would be my answer to you. But don't hold people hostage because there's a small minority that doesn't want to use a device. You're on mute, sorry.
I think that's also where some of the change management that you just went over comes in, and helping people like onboard residents onto this platform and helping them as much as you're able to get them to be responsive to using the tools so that the association or the community can function as best as possible, as cohesively as possible. But there are always going to be those outliers. So that's really interesting to know. Great question, Belinda. Thank you for asking that. We have a few more questions. How is the cost of your service calculated? Monthly, by number of units in the community, or by another metric?
Yeah, so I'll answer for myself and generally as well. We have a cost that varies depending on the size of the community. And I think most of the systems out there that are used year round, you'll get a similar type of proposal, which depends on the size of your community. And again, the way that you can look at this, and a great way of thinking about this, is take the subscription for the entire year for the community, divide it into the amount of doors that you have. Do yourself a favor, divide it into 12 after that, so you can see how much it's a monthly. And you'll come to realize that it's probably just a handful of dollars per door per unit. There's another metric that is important, another way that companies charge, which is a consumption-based model, right? So sometimes it's a yearly subscription, you pay a yearly subscription, like it's the case with us. Sometimes it's a consumption model where you're paying for usage. So if you send 1,000 messages, you pay this much, and if you send 10,000 messages, you send that much, right? Those are a little bit more tricky to be able to budget because you have to be really smart about how much you're going to use it, right? We tend to stay away from those types of arrangements because we don't want to penalize usage. We rather have the association subscribe and use it as much as possible within the constraints and the limits of what's logical and what should be included. So what you're looking at here realistically is probably, I'd say, $5 to $15 per door per month. And I say a range because it depends on what systems you want to use, but call it $5 to $10 per door per month. you can get a tremendous amount of tech for your community. And the range depends on the size of the community. It depends if you're, 3,000-4,000 doors, you might get, more economics of scale. And when you divide it up per door, but just think about that. You're probably spending, $30-$40, maybe $50 a year per door. So if you have, 10 doors, that's $500 a year, and you're getting an incredible tech stack, right? If you're 100 doors, then it's $5,000 a year. But again, you're dividing it by 100 doors. And that's kind of how you can start thinking about how this plays out.
Very cool. Okay. We have a comment. Alan, you are an AI source. I'm not sure about this one,
All
but thank
right.
you, John, for the comment.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you in our AI presentation soon. All right, let me get to it because I have two more quick sections that I
Please.
want to make sure that we cover. And then I
Definitely.
promise I'll stay on as long as we can
Great. And
to
in about
answer.
10 minutes at noon, I'll put that evaluation form in the chat for you guys to go ahead and fill out. So look out for that. Let's get back to it.
Beautiful. So back to regular programming. Thanks for the chat there, Maria. Let's get into communications, because communications is really, really, really important. Again, we had a whole session on this a few weeks back. It's recorded and available on the website that we showcased here at the beginning of the session. If you're interested in learning more, please go and look at that one. Today, we're going to speak about technology and how technology has evolved, and that has allowed for different communication formats to evolve as well. So the methods have really changed. Before COVID and a few years back, a lot of very important things used to happen in in-person meetings where if you didn't go, you couldn't vote. If you didn't go, you didn't know, you didn't hear about it, right? So this in-person thing had been changing for years, right? We saw people using other technology methods to communicate, but it really got accelerated and exacerbated when COVID hit and we couldn't meet up. And we happened to be, a company that was doing and developing solutions for associations with COVID hit. And all of a sudden we got into this reality where we couldn't meet up and we couldn't have the yearly meeting in person. So what are we going to do? For years now, we've been using snail mail as well. And snail mail is your regular letters that you get in the mail. And a lot of associations send out notices still, send out surveys, flyers, latest communication from the president. They print it out, they put it in the mail. And not necessarily one of the most efficient ones, we'll discuss it, but it's expensive. It's one of those communication methods that you have a direct cost for every mail you send out. We have telephone as well, which is another method of communicating, and it's really powerful. Needless to say, you give a call to someone, you speak to them, if you can articulate what you're trying to articulate, you're going to get your message across. Challenge with telephone is that it's not really scalable, right? I mean, having to call 600, 800 people, even 30 people is quite daunting. Not only that, but it's also pretty inconvenient because not only do you have to be available to make the phone call, but the other person has to be available at the same time to take the phone call. If not, we can't. It's just a voicemail. And a few years ago, we started seeing digital. And digital became a really, really powerful communication method. Digital implies text messages, and it implies push notifications on apps. And about a third of Americans nowadays spend more time on their mobile device every day. They have more screen time on their mobile device than they spend time with their spouse. Certainly time while they're awake, let alone sleeping. So how can we embrace all these different methods? But more importantly, how can we embrace digital communications a little bit more? And again, we have a whole section on this that's recorded for you guys to be able to consume on demand. But I'll close this communication piece by saying that not all communication methods are created equally. So what I want to show you folks here is open and response rates for the different methods that we could leverage today to notify our neighbors. So for example, snail mail. If you folks send out a letter, anyone sends out a letter every day in the United States, anyone that sends a letter in the mail, those letters are opened 42% of the time. People don't want to have things piling up in their mailbox. So they open it up, they see what's going on. Most of it, 99.9% 5% of those go straight into the trash. Or they're kept for a few days and then go straight into the trash. Because the response rate for snail mail is the lowest. It's horrible. Right now, if you get a letter and the letter says, open this letter up, open it up, and you open it up and there's a survey inside. And it says, we here, the association, we're very interested in understanding what your perspective is on this proposed project. Please flip over this page, fill out your survey, mail it back to us. You know how many responses you're going to get? Probably very, very little, because it's extremely inconvenient and no one responds nowadays to things in writing like that. The second communication method, which used to be a super impactful one, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was the most powerful one, is email. Nowadays, email has the worst open rate because every single one of us is oversaturated with emails. I'll finish today's session and I'll have 100 new unread emails, out of which probably 4 or 5 are really important. And the other ones are either not as important, or maybe they are important, but not as time pressing. And I'm going to have emails from different providers, and I'm going to have emails from Dick's Sporting Goods, and I'm going to have emails from Netflix about, a change in terms and conditions, and I'm going to have all these things happening, right? So email used to be really powerful. And nowadays, I speak to a lot of associations and I ask them, do you have the ability to communicate online with your residents? And they say, yes, of course, we send them emails. Well, only 80% of those emails are actually opened. And they only have a 2% response rate. So please reply back to this email kind of thing. Only 2%. Again, much better than snail mail, 4 times as good, but still pretty pitiful. Single digits, low single digits, almost 0. And all of a sudden, we came up as humans with a new technology called mobile. And nowadays, everyone has, or not everyone, a lot of folks have a cell phone in their pocket. And I already know that I have 3 unread text messages since I started talking to you folks. And the reason why I know that is because my phone even vibrates different when I have a text message than when I get anything else. And I haven't looked at the text messages because I'm giving my undivided attention here. But as soon as we hang up, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my phone and go to the text messages. And I'm going to make sure that I look at all of them, and I'll probably reply to any text message that just is asking for a simple reply. And then the other thing that I'm going to do, and I think a lot of you folks are going to do the same, is I'm going to look at any push notifications that I have. And any of those apps that have this little red dot on top of it, I'm probably going to go in. It might not be immediately, but it'll be over the next few hours. And by the time I go to sleep tonight, I'll probably won't have any unread notifications on the apps that I use the most. And just like myself, most people out there are using, and I think about this the same way, 98% of text messages that get sent out every day are opened. You'll even open up a text message from a number you don't know just to see what the text message has. It's just how we were wired. And those text messages that yield a response, 45% of them are actually answered. Text, those text 1 to reply, text 2 to opt out kind of text messages, those are huge reminders that we see, for example, in our system for online voting and payments and stuff like that. When we incorporate text messages to it, they spike like crazy. The response spikes, people actually do it. Now, there is one thing to keep in mind here, and that is that you have to be smart about when to use which method. If you're bombarding people with 3, 4, 5, 10 text messages per day, then you're going to be tuned out. People are going to tune you out. They're even going to opt out if they can, because you have to be smart about how you use the different tools. Send out 3, 4 different emails. Let people know that there's something happening via email. But if the gate is closed, if the elevator's not working, if the water's going to be shut off for the next 3 hours, send a text message. Don't send an email because no one's going to see it. Okay? That's what we have prepared for you today in terms of communications. We have a whole section on this and a whole webinar on this, and best practices and etiquette and how you can articulate your messages better. So if you're interested, please go to the website and make sure that you see some of that content there. I have one more section, but before that, I'm going to take a second. I know Maria was going to publish I think a survey or satisfaction survey. So
Yes.
I'll give you
Our
a few
evaluation
seconds.
form, yep, our
Yes.
evaluation form is in the chat, so make sure you guys can see that. Just click on the chat button on the bottom of your screen. And you should see that evaluation form. I'll post it again right now, just in case. And so please, when you guys have a chance, go ahead and fill out that evaluation form. Sometimes when folks are all trying to submit at the same time, it may not submit. So just if it's doing that for you, just give it a minute and try to come back to it.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's our quick commercial. I'll keep going here as we have one more section for you, which is some of the top 5 must-have features. I promised you at the beginning here, I'd leave you with some actionable items. And again, remember all the things that we discussed. You got to make sure that it's new tech. You have to make sure that it's software as a service. You have to make sure that it's incorporated within your general strategy. And hopefully you have AI that's woven in as part of those services as well. But what are some of the 5 features that you should provide your residents nowadays? Well, number 1 is the ability to submit and track service requests. This is really important because people are going to submit them regardless, right? If you're getting emails from people saying there's a light bulb that's out, there's a sprinkler that's not working, I need, security to check a weird car that's parked somewhere. If you don't have a system where these things are being reported by your residents, then you're probably working a ton more than you have to. Either that, or you're missing the opportunity many times because you're getting people to submit things that are just going to the trash. So how can we get people to actually work for the community? Have a service request module where people can submit things in an organized manner, where you, as the association managers and board members, can create your categories. And more importantly, where you have a system that not only can track these things, track these requests, but actually update residents automatically as these things are happening. Because what we see more often than not in association management, people are having to tell residents what they're going to do, then they do them, and then they have to tell residents what they did. And every single thing takes 3 times as much work. So let's just find a system that people can submit things that are organized. They can check status whenever they want. You can update status on your end, and things get automatically communicated out. If you don't have a system for service requests nowadays, and it's not part of your strategy, you should definitely look into that. Number 2 is a document portal. It used to be, if you're in Florida and you're a condo, it used to be a nice to have. Now it's a must-have if you're over 25 units. By the way, if you're an HOA, now there's also minimum, I think it's like 200 units, check with your lawyer, but it's a must-have in many cases. Needless to say, even if you don't fall within that threshold, if you have a really small community, why would you not have a document portal? Nowadays, it's so cheap, so easy. You set it up, it's centralized information. All you have to do is update the documents for the association records in one place. Residents can come in and consume them and look at them on demand. They're password protected. I understand a few years ago, maybe 5-10 years ago, if you didn't have a document portal because it was daunting. But nowadays, I could probably spin one up for you in 10 minutes. So again, make sure that you have a document portal, make sure that it's updated, make sure that it's relevant and people can come in. And then all of your requests, hey, John, I'd love to see, latest financials. Here's a link to the portal. Hey, do we have our rules and regulations? Here's a link to the portal. Do we have our budget for 2025? Here's a link to the portal. It becomes so easy. Eventually, people will start going to the portal before asking you, and that's when you're going to save so much time. Number 3 is online voting. If you're in the state of Florida, or any other state for that matter at this point, I think everyone has their own version of this. Massachusetts was the last one that hadn't passed and recently passed over the summer. You need to be doing online voting. It makes no sense not to have an online voting platform for your association. Why? It saves you money. because you don't have to send out, as many notices. You can do more events, but that's secondary. The most important reason why you want to do online voting is because you want to be able to drive participation, and you want to be able to get people to vote and participate and feel that they're part of the community. And this is going to create a much better scenario, because any decision that's made by the majority of the folks has naturally the ability to be a popular decision. Any decision that's made by 10, 15, 20% of the folks, even if that means electing the board, is probably going to be challenged and frowned upon by the rest of the community. So get online voting. It's easy. Nowadays, there's systems out there like ONR and others. I think there's another one here that is a sponsor. Vote HOA Now. Look at the systems out there. Look at the opportunity to showcase these systems. Try them out. It's going to really help you. It's going to save you time and money. And eventually, you'll start seeing higher participation. We've seen communities that have 85, 90, even 95% of units participating, and all those decisions are really, really popular. Number 4 out of 5 is a payment gateway. So are you collecting payments digitally? And the answer can't be, oh yeah, we do ACH with the bank. Okay, I understand that. There's some automation happening there, but that's not a true payment gateway. A true payment gateway is the association can charge residents for different things. Could be their maintenance dues, where people can decide to pay with a credit card. Could be you're selling a key fob or a parking decal. Could be that you're reserving a parking space or a storage bin, and you're going to rent it out to a resident, for example. There's a million different use cases that we have. It could be an application fee for a new pet or a new vehicle, right? You could start charging a $5 vehicle registration fee and start making money off of that. There's a lot of different use cases for people to be able to pay online. We talked about a restaurant, for example, with a question a few minutes ago. But how are you giving people the ability to pay online? And something that's interesting is that in the communities that have been doing ACH payments for years, when we come in and we turn on our payment gateway, we see a large part of those residents transition from paying with ACH to paying with their credit cards. And they do that because nowadays people are tight and they want to be able to, carry things on their credit cards. They get points back on their credit cards. It's part of their financial strategy as well. Make sure you give people the ability to pay with a credit card as well. Even better if there's Apple Pay, Google Pay. Get modern. I think the best thing that the association can have is easy ways of collecting cash, because where associations really struggle is when we don't have a way to easily collect the money from our memberships. And finally, consents and approvals. This is really, really important. If you're asking people to sign things and approve things in writing, you're probably doing a lot of work and doing a lot of chasing and trying to get papers back and forth, and it's a mess. Get a DocuSign or something like that where people can sign things digitally and approve for things and sign contracts and sign waivers and sign things. Even better, find a system that has the ability weaved in so you don't have to have a separate tool now just to do e-signatures. But get e-signatures, because nowadays everything can be done online. People can get mortgages online. They can open up bank accounts. People can do a ton of things online with e-signatures. Make sure that you're incorporating that into your association as well. So those are the top most 5 you should have. You should have service requests. You should have documents online. You should have the ability to do payments. You should have online voting and signatures. If you have at least those 5 things, then you're well on your way. If you don't have one of these 5 things, then you're making your residents have to do a lot of work. They have to come in and they have to sign in paper. They have to go get a cashier's check to reserve the party room. They have to mail back the paper from the Northeast or South America or wherever they're connecting from to vote online. It's cumbersome, it's outdated, and it's our responsibilities as thought leaders to push our association forward. And these are the tough 5 must-haves that we need. Cool. So, Marielle, this takes us to the end of the content. We do have some Q&A, but I'd be happy to maybe field some of the ones from the chat first.
Yeah, we have a bunch of questions. So a lot of questions about the functionality and features. First is from Brenda, can you utilize your reserve study with AI to schedule major projects? And can you use AI to generate lists of products needed when inventory gets low? So kind of a two-part question here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we need the data, right? So you need to know what systems do you have, what provisions do you have, so on and so forth. So remember, this is about two things. It's about the system automatically recognizing certain triggers. Your supplies are low or the inventory is running low, whatever that case is. That's component number one. Component number two is what happens automatically when that is triggered. A new notification is sent out, a new task is created, a new work order is released to be able to purchase this additional supplies. You need to have a system that does both. So Brenda, if you want, we can spend some time. I can show you some off-the-shelf tools that can help you with this analysis. And we can also discuss what we can do from the O&R perspective to make sure that you have a system that can automate some of these processes for you.
Okay, and we have the next couple are both about functions. So will or can this system replace our newsletter or booklet? And then we also have one about, does the software have a work order portal? So similar.
Yeah. So the quick answer is yes. So we have the ability to send emails. We have the ability to send, links with attachments to PDF. We have the ability to generate work orders for staff members and third-party providers. So the answer is yes. If you're interested in learning more, please schedule a demo. We'd love to show you the product.
Awesome. So from Annette, is Building Link going to be AI compatible or is it outdated?
I need to be very careful because I don't badmouth anyone. I think Building Link is a very complete and robust platform. They have a very strong install base and they've been serving associations successfully for many years. Okay. Building Link is a system. It's one of those systems that were around prior to software as a service that has been re-engineered to be delivered as a service. So I'm not sure what AI compatibility they have or what is in their roadmap. I'm not privy to that. What I will tell you is that there's a handful of systems out there, like O&R, that are trying to replicate and do some of the things that Building Link has done with a newer twist on some of these trends. So if you are a Building Link user, give yourself the chance to look at what else is out there. O&R, for example, would be a tool that I would look into, needless to say. I'm a little biased. But look at some of the tools that are out there. And again, schedule a demo, compare the difference, and see not only is it AI compatible, but also some of the other things that we discuss. Is it a great interface? Does it have social media-like features that people will be able to easily, interact with? And if you need some type of score sheet, I'd be happy to help you put that together as well.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's always kind of important, especially with newer technologies that are available all the time, to make sure that you're doing your own due diligence to see if you're using the best tool for your needs at the current moment. So
that's a great point. And usually tech doesn't go like this. It's not linear. Usually how technology works is that it's hockey sticks, right? It's exponential. So what ends up happening is that every few years there's a new technology that's released that really revamps and shakes things up. So the first thing that happened in the 2000s was the dot-com bubble, right? So things started becoming dot-com and people started reevaluating their systems. And we started seeing the proliferation of mobile apps as well in, late 2010, maybe 2015, where people started having mobile apps and everything became about a mobile app. Yeah. And now everything's AI, right? And it's not only hype, it's actually that these changes in technologies allow for new players to come up with value propositions that far outweigh what you had already. And that's where you should be able to look in and, like you say, have an open mind and reevaluate your strategy, because a decision you made 3, 4, 5 years ago, which could have been the right decision, might not be the right decision today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great, thank you for asking that question. I think that was a really interesting and needed answer. So more questions about functionality. Does the software have the capability of sending violations, which seems like it would, based on the fact that you can send emails and notifications.
So violations is a little bit more complex than just messaging, because violations has a whole process in associations of appealing. It has a process of having hearings. ONR is about to release our AI-powered violations engine. That's going to be really exciting from here to the end of the year. Right now, we integrate with, like I said, other violation providers, like some of the accounting platforms as well, to provide a single point of access. But violations are really interesting because violations are one of those things that touch the entire spectrum. You have communications, you have votes that need to be made, you have payments that need to be processed. It kind of touches on the different parts of the app. So make sure that you don't buy a standalone violations product. Get a violation product that is embedded within your property management software.
And I think that probably goes without saying for all of the different siloed functions that you may need to run a cohesive association, is making sure you have something that all those little parts can plug into something that is going to manage all of it, so that you don't have to log in to 15 different portals to manage your association.
That is the eureka. That's what we're all shooting for here. So imagine if you had to go to your bank and you had to have a different website, a username and password for every single bank account. You would go crazy, you know? Like you would never accept that. Or if you had to go to Amazon and you needed to have a different access for Amazon Prime that you needed for Amazon, that you needed for something else, like you would never do that. People just want to go to one place and be able to be presented with everything.
Yeah.
And we saw this happen in business, by the way. Nowadays, it's very rare for you to have 20 different apps. You probably have 2 or 3 apps, because those 20 apps got consolidated into 2 or 3 that you use every day. And it's happening now with associations as well.
Okay, excellent. Don't people need to opt in to receiving text messages or SMS?
I'm going to be very, very smart and not answer any legal questions, because I am not a lawyer.
There you go.
But what I will tell you is that you have to find that technology that will make it easier for people to consent and opt in if you do have that requirement presented to you by your lawyer. So find a system that not only can send out the text, but can help you collect consents if your association lawyer determines it's the right thing.
Right. So none of this is legal advice.
None of this is legal advice.
This is we're talking about a tool that can make it easier to communicate or to collect, in this case, consents to receive text messages, or potentially if somebody prefers to be communicated via email, to have a tool to manage that. So thank you.
Correct.
And then, in the similar vein, hello, unfortunately, not everyone supplies their updated phone number, and it makes it a little difficult to ensure that the entire community residents get notified. I imagine that this is an issue, whether you guys are using a community association communication app or not. This is probably not a issue that is going away, but I imagine potentially you guys may be able to help in this regard, whether by having email notifications in lieu of updated phone information or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's always tough, and we understand people see privacy in different ways. Different demographics see it in different ways. For example, from my perspective, my email address is as public as my physical address. You know, if you look me up right now in Sunbiz and you look up my property taxes, you'll find my name and you'll find my address. You know, you'll find my house. I live in Florida, right? And I mean, yes, it's private information, but it's very little you can do with that. I mean, you could technically come up to my door and knock, you know, and if you're nice enough, I'll let you in. If
nobody do that.
Nobody do that, but that's the extent of what could happen, right? What's the worst thing that can happen if I get your email? I'm going to send you an email. And if you don't like my email, you can block my email. You're never going to see another email from me again, you know, because they're going to go to spam. So again, that's my interpretation. I understand people look at their information a little bit differently. Every single system you get out there, every single system that you bring onto your community will have a privacy policy. And if you're concerned about that, as you should look at the privacy policy before you sign an agreement and you provide your resident information. And that privacy policy will outline very clearly what intentions that company has with your data. And if you see things like, we only use this data to provide service and service you, blah, 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 you're good. When you start seeing things like, we reserve the right to sell your data. We reserve the right to sell it to third-party services. When you start, again, not a lawyer, but when you start seeing language that implies that the company is going to do things with your information beyond just servicing you, red flag, right? And there's some companies out there that will sell you the system very, very cheaply. They'll even say, you know what, don't worry about it. It's free. You don't have to pay me anything. You don't have to pay me anything. You just have to upload the information because they're monetizing on the other side the data. I'll tell you this much. If you're using a system online and you're not paying for it, you're not the consumer, you're the product. And that goes for social media as well, just so you know. Right now, we all use it for free. So we're not the customers, we're the product.
Just a quick interjection about the evaluation form. I know a lot of you guys are trying at the very same time. So just if it's not submitting for you, just wait a couple minutes and just try again. So it's just a lot of people trying at once. So if for some reason it's not submitting, just hold off for a couple minutes and just try again if you guys are not getting it through.
We're breaking the internet. That's right.
And breaking the internet. It's always we have a great response on these webinars, and a lot of you guys are here joining us, which is incredible. So just like anything else, when everybody tries at the same time, sometimes either it's slow or it doesn't go through. So just give it a couple minutes and try again. We also will be sending you guys a follow-up email just to thank you for joining us, that will have this evaluation form in the event that it doesn't work in the next 20 minutes. So don't worry, you'll have another opportunity to fill out that evaluation form.
Beautiful.
So Faith is asking, is there a third-party charge for credit card payments?
Yeah, so credit card payments, needless to say, have a convenience fee. I think we've all come accustomed to it. It's usually in the single digits, low single digits, right? 2, 3, maybe 4% at most. You shouldn't be paying 15, 20% on credit card transactions. I don't think that's anywhere to be seen. Now, who pays for these transaction fees, right? These convenience fees. Well, the convenience, more often than not, is on the resident, right? So you have to set it up in a way where if people want to pay with their credit card and they're going to get the points on their Amex to go, on vacation or whatever it is, or their cash back on their credit card, then they're going to be paying for the convenience fees. The association should be able to net the same amount, regardless if it's a credit card payment, a check, or an ACH. Again, 2 to 4% is usually the range that you see for credit card processing, and I think it'll probably hold with any product.
So another question, do accounting functions include payroll? And I'm curious if this is in relation to paying service providers, or I'm just thinking who would potentially even be on payroll that would an association or condo board would need to.
Yeah, so maybe self-manage if they had their staff, and they were doing their staff could be. I mean, payroll is part of accounting, needless to say. So wherever you're managing the books for the association itself, certainly needs to have payroll. And that could be at the association level, that could be happening at the property management level too, because there's different arrangements for different associations if they're not self-managed. But when we're talking about accounting in this context, we're talking a little bit more about accounting from the resident perspective. So what is my account ledger? What do I owe the association? What are the things how are the ways that they collect, and how are the ways, to your point, they pay out their third-party providers and, FPL and water and sewage, so on and so forth. So perfect example here, try to get a accounting system that does everything for you, because if not, now you have now you have 2 systems for accounting on top of everything else,
Since a lot of questions were answered live, it would be nice to see them written for reference later. Either maybe this is something you guys have, a Q&A page on your website.
Yeah, so we'd be happy to share a Q&A. I think what we can do, we can take the recording for today, we could throw it on an AI engine, and we can have those questions written out in a list that we can follow up with. So we'll try to put it ourselves to the test here.
Cool. And just so you guys know, this session is being recorded. It will be available on the acebytsk.com website under our resources section. That same page I showed you at the beginning of the webinar today, that's where you'll find this session. So you can always refer back to it. You could share it with colleagues, and it'll be up in the next day or so. So just keep that in mind. All right.
And we can do an a cappella session just for you if you wanted to. Let us know.
I like the AI Q&A idea. So Darlene, you can't get the evaluation form to submit. I think this is just what I was mentioning before. Just give it a few minutes, or again, we'll be sending you a thank you email where you could try again later or tomorrow. So no worries. Belinda, how do you know we received your survey? As long as you see that submission page, which I showed you guys earlier on screen, it should say thank you for your submission. As long as you see that submission page, you'll see contact information for O&R. You'll see opportunity to request a demo. That's all the information you'll see on the submissions page. As long as you see that page, you should be all good. If you don't see that page, you could always resubmit that evaluation form either later today or when you receive that thank you email from us. So I see, Sasha, you're going to answer this last question, which was already answered about just the cost structure, the fee structure of your platform, which is great. And let's see. Can you comment out aloud on how participants will receive their certificate of attending? I just want to reiterate, you guys will not need a certificate in order to get the credit. As long as you were here, you fill out that evaluation form, and it shows on Zoom, on the Zoom attendance, that you were here for the duration of the session, you will receive credits. If you do need or want a certificate for some reason, you can contact the O&R team directly. I'll put, could I put, I know you guys will have Alan's email upon submission of your evaluation form.
Same one. Just let me know that you need a certificate as well. I'll forward it to the team. We'll provide one for you. But again, it's more optional than anything. You'll get the credit regardless.
You'll get the credit regardless of the certificate. We usually don't provide them. So I know a lot of people do ask on the webinar series this summer. We usually don't provide them. They're not necessary to get that credit. But if you want one just to show that you participated, then feel free to contact the O&R team. Again, I want to reiterate that this was, first of all, a great session. It will be available. So if you guys enjoyed the session, I encourage you to go watch it and share it with your colleagues, with your boards, share it with your communities, because this is really valuable information. And I know that the industry, you know, has a long way to go in terms of upping our technology game. And this is a really amazing start to start understanding at least what's possible. And I know that the team at O&R is here to help you guys kind of along your journey of where to start and how integrations for some of your systems that you already are using could fit into an overarching platform. So I really encourage you guys to reach out, take advantage of this really interesting information. There aren't too many people in the industry who have this kind of information, this kind of expertise and knowledge, and have really built such a comprehensive tool. So I encourage you to do that, and like I said, share. So thank you. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, Mario. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to come here and showcase. It's a tremendous turnout. We have hundreds of people connecting to these sessions. So kudos to the team. And, you know, hopefully we have the opportunity to come back again. We're very excited about what's happening in the market because we have a huge opportunity ahead of us. We are in the HOA and condo space about 10 years behind the multifamily. So I think it's on all of us collectively to figure it out, get systems out there that add value and not add complexity, and make it in a way where residents want to live in the community and have a great resident experience. Because I'll tell you this just to close out. Nowadays, you have a digital companion with all of your major purchases. You get a car with an app, a light bulb with an app, you have a AC thermostat with an app, you have a coffee machine with an app. Get an app for your community, because if not, you're really falling behind, and there's a big opportunity there. So reach out to us, let us know how we can help. And thank you so much for the opportunity to come here again.
Thanks so much, team. Thanks, everyone.